For years, Donald Trump has used social media as one of his most powerful weapons. He posts. He provokes. He mocks. He amplifies. And then he waits for the internet to react. But this week, something happened that made that entire strategy look very different. Because this time, the response to Donald Trump didn't come from another politician. It didn't come from a campaign spokesperson. It didn't come from a cable news host. It came from something much quieter. Taylor Swift's music disappeared. Several videos posted by Trump's campaign and the White House had used Taylor Swift songs. And then those songs were removed. No dramatic press conference. No lengthy statement. No angry post from Taylor. No public back and forth. Just silence. And somehow, that silence may have said more than 1,000 words could have. Reuters reported on August 9 that Swift songs had been removed from social media videos posted by Trump's campaign and the White House after the administration had used her music in multiple posts. The news agency also reported that neither the White House nor a representative for Swift immediately responded to requests for comment. And that distinction matters. Because we cannot simply say Taylor Swift personally logged onto TikTok and deleted the videos. We don't know that. What we do know is that her music appeared in the posts, and the audio was subsequently removed. And considering Taylor's long history with unauthorized uses of her music and her very public political opposition to Trump, fans immediately understood why this was getting so much attention. Because this isn't just about a song. It's about control. It's about identity. It's about one of the world's biggest entertainers refusing to let her music become political decoration for a movement she has publicly opposed. And perhaps most importantly, this isn't an isolated incident. It is another chapter in one of the strangest celebrity political feuds of the modern era. Donald Trump has repeatedly targeted Taylor Swift. Taylor has rarely answered him directly. And yet somehow, the story keeps coming back. So today, we're going through what happened, why the music was removed, how Trump has repeatedly tried to pull Taylor into his political orbit, and why her silence may actually be the most interesting part of this entire story. If you're a Swiftie who wants to follow not just the headlines but the bigger story behind every Taylor era, you're in the right place. This is Taylor Timeline. And if you love following Taylor's career, music, public moments, and everything happening around her, subscribe now, because this story is about much more than a TikTok audio track. Let's start with the moment that set everything off. Imagine scrolling through TikTok. You see Donald Trump. You see Melania Trump. You see fireworks. And then you hear Taylor Swift. More specifically, you hear August. For anyone familiar with Taylor's catalog, the choice is immediately recognizable. August is one of the signature songs from folklore. It's nostalgic. It's dreamy. It's associated with late summer. And because the song literally contains the word August, people have been using it online during the month of August for years. So the use of the song by itself wasn't necessarily some grand political statement. It could have been a simple attempt to tap into a cultural trend. But there was one problem. This was a Trump-affiliated social media post. And Taylor Swift is not politically neutral in the way Trump's social media team might have wanted her to be. She endorsed Kamala Harris during the 2024 presidential election. She has criticized Trump in the past. And Trump has repeatedly criticized her. So when her music appeared in his political content, the question wasn't simply, why did they use this song? The bigger question became, did Taylor want her music there? And then something happened. The audio was removed. Reporting from Vanity Fair described the episode as part of a series of Trump campaign and White House videos featuring Swift's music that were subsequently silenced, including a post featuring August and another post built around her Red era. Again, the important thing is what we know, and what we don't. Taylor herself has not publicly announced that she personally ordered the removals. But the result was unmistakable. The Taylor Swift soundtrack was gone. And then Trump's team tried something else. Because apparently one Taylor Swift song disappearing wasn't enough. This is where the situation became almost surreal. Trump's campaign posted a parody-style message built around Taylor's Red era. The post played with Taylor's song titles and Republican political messaging. One line referenced Red. Another referenced Taylor supposedly having written an entire album about Republicans. Other Taylor song titles were repurposed to make political jokes about Trump, the Biden-Harris administration, and immigration. Reuters documented the post and its references to Swift's songs. And that is an important detail. Because Red isn't just another Taylor album. It's one of the defining eras of her career. It represents heartbreak, reinvention, emotional chaos, growth, and eventually, ownership. Taylor later reclaimed the album through Red, Taylor's version. So seeing that title transformed into a political joke was bound to get Swifties' attention. And once again, the music associated with the post was removed. That's when the internet started doing what the internet does best. Swifties began reacting. Some joked that the silence itself was the message. Others pointed out that if the Trump team wanted Taylor's music, they couldn't simply assume that having access to the song meant having permission to use it in political messaging. And some fans went even further. They started asking the question that has followed Trump and Taylor for years. Why is he so interested in her? Because this is not the first time Trump has used Taylor's image, music, or cultural influence in ways that she didn't appear to welcome. And it certainly isn't the first time Taylor has found herself dragged into a political conversation she didn't initiate. To understand why this latest incident feels bigger than a couple of muted TikToks, you have to go back. The Trump-Taylor story didn't begin this week. It didn't even begin with the 2024 election. The tension goes back years. Taylor became increasingly outspoken about politics during the Trump era. In her 2020 election messaging, she made her opposition to Trump clear. And by the 2024 election, she made her position even more explicit. After the presidential debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, Swift announced that she would be voting for Harris. Her endorsement wasn't vague. She explained why she was making the choice and encouraged her followers to educate themselves about the candidates and issues. The response was immediate. And Trump responded too. Not with a detailed political argument. Not with a policy debate. With 4 words. I hate Taylor Swift. The message became one of the most memorable moments in their increasingly strange public feud. And then, months later, Trump brought her up again. In May 2025, he posted, "Has anyone noticed that, since I said, I hate Taylor Swift, she's no longer hot?" CBS News reported the post at the time, noting that Trump's original attack had followed Swift's endorsement of Harris. Think about that for a second. The President of the United States was publicly commenting on whether Taylor Swift was still hot. And whatever anyone thought of the politics, the obsession was difficult to miss. Because Taylor wasn't talking about him. She wasn't posting about him every morning. She wasn't building her career around criticizing him. She had made her political choice and moved forward. Yet Trump kept returning to her. And that brings us to one of the biggest reasons this feud has remained so fascinating. Taylor doesn't seem to need the feud. Trump's social media style thrives on engagement. Taylor's brand thrives on something very different. She can say very little and still generate enormous attention. This may actually be the most important part of the entire story. Taylor Swift hasn't publicly turned this latest music removal situation into a political spectacle. There was no giant statement, no video, no press conference. No dramatic Instagram post. And that is significant. Because Taylor understands something that very few celebrities at her level can afford to understand. Attention is power. But so is refusing to give someone attention. For years, Taylor has learned how to control her public narrative. She knows when to speak. She knows when to stay quiet. She knows when a song can say something for her. And she knows when silence can say even more. So imagine the contrast. Trump's political communication machine posts Taylor Swift music. The internet notices. The music disappears. And Taylor says nothing. Suddenly, everyone is talking about Taylor anyway. That is the irony. The attempt to use her cultural power ends up highlighting the fact that her cultural power doesn't belong to them. And that distinction matters enormously. Because music isn't just background noise. For Taylor Swift, songs are pieces of her identity. They're connected to eras, memories, fans, performances, lyrics, and decades of work. So when an artist's music appears in a political video, it can create the impression that the artist is participating in that message. And that's exactly why unauthorized music use can become such a sensitive issue. Taylor doesn't have to stand at a podium and say, "Don't associate me with this." If the music disappears, people understand. Here's where this story becomes much bigger than Donald Trump. Because Taylor Swift has demonstrated that her influence extends far beyond music. We saw it in 2023. Taylor posted an Instagram story encouraging fans to register to vote. She directed them toward vote.org, and the response was enormous. According to vote.org, 35,252 people registered through its platform on National Voter Registration Day after Swift's post. The organization said it was its largest National Voter Registration Day since 2020. That's not a small celebrity effect. That's measurable civic influence. Think about what that means. Taylor doesn't need to tell millions of people how to vote. She doesn't need to campaign every day. She doesn't need to run political advertisements. Sometimes, all she has to do is tell people, "Make sure you're registered." And thousands respond. That is why politicians pay attention to her. That is why campaigns care about her. And that is also why the Trump team's repeated attempts to incorporate her songs or cultural references into its social media messaging attract so much attention. Taylor has something politicians spend millions trying to manufacture: organic cultural influence. Her fans already trust her. They already follow her. They already pay attention when she speaks. And most importantly, they don't have to agree with her on everything for her influence to matter. That's the part that political campaigns understand. There's another layer to all of this: artificial intelligence. Taylor has already found herself caught up in political misinformation involving AI. During the 2024 campaign, Trump shared AI-generated images that falsely portrayed Swift as supporting him. Swift responded by making her actual political position public. That incident mattered because it showed exactly how quickly AI-generated political content can create confusion around a celebrity. A fake image can make it look as though a celebrity supports a candidate. A fake video can make someone appear to say something they never said. And a song can be placed underneath political imagery in a way that makes viewers wonder whether the artist approves of the message. The technology changes. The principle doesn't. Control over your image matters. Control over your voice matters. And control over your music matters. That's why the current situation is so interesting. The Trump team has a massive social media presence. They know how to generate attention. They know how to create controversy. They know that celebrities bring clicks. But Taylor's apparent response has been incredibly simple: remove the music. No spectacle required. There is another reason this rivalry stands out. Taylor Swift is one of the most commercially successful entertainers on earth. Donald Trump is one of the most powerful political figures in the United States. Their worlds couldn't be more different. One operates through music, touring, songwriting, fandom, and entertainment. The other operates through elections, government, political movements, and media. And yet they keep crossing paths. At times, it almost feels like two completely different cultural universes colliding. Taylor releases an album. Trump posts about Taylor. Taylor fans react. Trump's supporters react. The media covers it. And suddenly an artist who was talking about music is back in a political story. But Taylor's approach has generally been different from Trump's. She doesn't appear interested in having an endless social media feud. She doesn't need to respond to every insult. She doesn't need to win every online argument. And perhaps most importantly, she doesn't need to convince everyone. Her career has already demonstrated the power of her audience. Her Eras tour became a cultural phenomenon. Her music continues to dominate streaming and sales. And her fans remain intensely engaged. So when Trump says something about Taylor, the obvious question isn't necessarily, what will Taylor say? Sometimes the better question is, will Taylor say anything at all? Because silence can be a strategy. And there's one more important piece of context. Taylor isn't the only major artist whose music has appeared in Trump-related social media content. Reuters reported that multiple artists, including Sabrina Carpenter and Ariana Grande, have objected to the Trump administration's use of their music. So this isn't simply a Taylor Swift versus Donald Trump story. It's part of a much larger conflict between political messaging and artists who don't want their work associated with political campaigns or government propaganda. And we've seen versions of this conflict before. Artists across the political spectrum have objected when politicians use their songs without permission or in ways that conflict with their values. The music industry has always had a complicated relationship with politics. Politicians want recognizable songs because recognizable songs create emotional associations. Artists want control over where their work appears. And audiences often assume that if a song is playing underneath a political video, the artist must approve of the message. That's not necessarily true. Which brings us back to Taylor. When her songs disappear from these videos, the message becomes almost impossible to misunderstand. The song was there. Now it isn't. And whatever happened behind the scenes, the final product no longer has Taylor's music attached to it. And if you want proof that the Trump administration has developed a particularly combative relationship with outspoken musicians, look no further than Jack White. In August 2025, White criticized the transformation of the Oval Office, describing the redesigned space in extremely harsh terms. The White House responded by calling White a washed-up, has-been loser. The exchange quickly escalated, with White firing back at the administration. Now, Jack White is obviously not Taylor Swift. Their music is different. Their audiences are different. Their careers are different. But the underlying pattern is similar. An artist criticizes Trump. Trump's political operation responds aggressively. The artist responds. The media covers it. And the controversy grows. That's part of the modern celebrity political ecosystem. Social media has made the distance between a president and a pop star almost non-existent. A president can post about a celebrity in seconds. A celebrity can respond to millions of people without going through a newspaper editor. And fans can instantly become participants in the argument. That's why these stories move so quickly. But Taylor's situation is unusual because she has enormous influence without needing to participate in the fight every time. And then there are the Swifties. Because if Taylor doesn't say something, her fans usually will. After the recent posts were muted, fans flooded social media with reactions. Some joked about the missing audio. Some celebrated the fact that the music was gone. Others questioned why Trump's team seemed so determined to use Taylor's music despite the obvious political tension between them. And one fan reaction captured the entire situation particularly well. Why is he so obsessed? It's funny, but it also points to something real. The more Trump talks about Taylor, the more the feud becomes part of the story. And Taylor doesn't have to participate for that to happen. Her fans have effectively become a giant cultural audience watching two very different forms of power collide. Political power on one side, pop cultural power on the other. And when those two forces meet, the internet turns it into a spectacle. But there is something Taylor's fans understand very well. Taylor has spent years building her own world. Her albums have their own identities. Her eras have their own visual language. Her songs have deeply personal meanings to millions of people. So when someone outside that world attempts to borrow one of those songs for an unrelated political message, fans can feel protective. Because to them, it's not just a 3-minute recording. It's part of their memories, their relationships, their childhoods, their breakups, their celebrations, their own lives. That's what makes Taylor's music so valuable. And that's also why controlling where it appears matters. Now we reach the part nobody can answer yet. Will this continue? Will Trump's campaign keep using Taylor Swift songs? Will more of them disappear? Will Taylor eventually make a public statement? Or will she simply continue doing what she has done so far? Stay quiet. Let the music speak when she wants it to. And remove the music when it doesn't belong there. At this point, we don't know. And that's important. We shouldn't pretend that Taylor has secretly declared some new war on Trump when she hasn't. We shouldn't invent conversations between Taylor and her legal team. We shouldn't claim she personally ordered every removal when the public reporting doesn't establish that. What we can say is that the pattern is real. Trump's political operation has repeatedly used Taylor's music. The music has subsequently disappeared from some of those posts. And Taylor has a well-documented history of political opposition to Trump. Those facts alone are enough to make this story significant. Because the symbolism is powerful. Trump can post Taylor Swift's music. But he can't make Taylor Swift endorse him. He can use her songs. But he can't control what those songs mean to her fans. And he can criticize her. But he can't force her to respond. That last point might be the one that bothers a social media-driven politician the most. Maybe that's the real lesson here. Taylor Swift doesn't have to outpost Donald Trump. She doesn't have to beat him at his own social media game. She doesn't need to respond every time her name appears on his feed. Her power comes from somewhere else. It comes from the songs, the tours, the records, the fans, the decades of work, and the ability to choose when her voice is used. That's why this week's story is so fascinating. On the surface, it's just a few TikTok videos. A song plays. Then the song disappears. But underneath that tiny digital interaction is a much larger argument about celebrity influence, political messaging, artistic control, and the extraordinary cultural power of Taylor Swift. And perhaps that's why the silence feels so loud. Because Taylor didn't need to write a 500-word statement. She didn't need to insult anyone. She didn't need to start a public fight. The result was enough to get everyone talking. And once again, Taylor Swift became the story without having to chase the spotlight. If you step back and look at Taylor's political evolution, this moment also fits into a much larger timeline. There was a time when Taylor was extremely cautious about politics. Then came the Trump era. Then came her increasingly public political statements. Then the voter registration push. Then her 2024 endorsement of Kamala Harris. Then Trump's "I hate Taylor Swift" post. Then his later claim that she was no longer hot. And now we're watching another chapter unfold through her music. Each moment is different. But together, they tell a story about a celebrity who gradually became much more comfortable deciding when and how she wanted to use her platform. And that evolution is important. Because Taylor's political influence didn't appear overnight. It developed alongside her career. She learned what happened when she spoke. She learned what happened when she stayed silent. And she learned that millions of people were paying attention either way. That may be why the current situation feels so different from the Taylor Swift of a decade ago. She doesn't look like someone waiting for permission anymore. She looks like someone who knows exactly how much power she has. So where does that leave us? Taylor Swift has not publicly declared a new feud with Donald Trump. She hasn't issued some dramatic statement about the latest posts. And we should not put words in her mouth. But the facts are still striking. Trump's campaign and the White House used Taylor Swift songs in social media videos. Some of those songs were subsequently removed. Her music had appeared in Trump-related posts multiple times. And the latest removals have once again put their unusual relationship in the spotlight. Trump has spent years trying to turn Taylor Swift into part of his political conversation. But Taylor doesn't have to accept the invitation. She doesn't have to debate him. She doesn't have to trade insults. She doesn't have to play the same game. Sometimes, she can simply take her music back. And that's what makes this moment so interesting. Because Donald Trump has built a political career around commanding attention. Taylor Swift has built a cultural empire around commanding attention too. But their methods couldn't be more different. Trump demands the spotlight. Taylor can step away from it and somehow still own the moment. And maybe that's why this story isn't really about who won a social media argument. It's about who controls the narrative. And right now, the most fascinating part is that Taylor Swift hasn't even had to say anything. The music disappeared. The fans noticed. The headlines followed. And the conversation continued. That is Taylor Swift's kind of power. Not necessarily the loudest voice in the room. Not necessarily the most aggressive response. But the ability to make the entire room notice when she chooses to speak. And notice just as much when she doesn't. And if Donald Trump continues using Taylor's music, or if more songs suddenly disappear from political posts, this story could have another chapter very soon. But for now, there is one thing we can say with confidence. Taylor Swift's music belongs to her artistic world. Her political choices belong to her. And no social media post can change that. This is exactly why we follow the timeline. Because with Taylor Swift, the smallest moment can become part of a much bigger story. And whatever comes next, Swifties will be watching. If you want to keep following every major Taylor Swift headline, every unexpected twist, and every new chapter surrounding the biggest pop star on the planet, make sure you're subscribed to Taylor Timeline. Because this story may be quiet right now, but something tells me it isn't over.